slow, unrelenting freeze, and many believe the apocalypse will be signaled by omens.
I had never seen birds falling from the sky.
I saw them bounce off my mailbox. That's when I shined the flashlight down. It looked like leaves. There were so many birds on the ground.
After a deadly New Year's Eve in Arkansas,
this case has been elevated to legal status.
A wave of animal deaths seems to be sweeping the globe. Are these events somehow connected?
God is sending a message.
What really killed the birds of Arkansas? Arkansas, December 31st, 2010. This Bible Belt town of over 6,000 souls prepares to celebrate the new year.
Tomorrow's the new day.
Tomorrow's the new day.
And we are ready for the countdown.
Around the world, the arrival of the new year is an occasion for optimism, a time to chart a new and better course. But at the close of 2010 in the town of Beebe, a bumpy night lay ahead for residents and city officials.
My wife and I were watching television and we were waiting for the 12 o'clock to watch the New Year's with Dick Clark.
I got a phone call from one of my officers that had told me that he was responding to calls out in the Wynwood area close to where I live in reference to birds.
People were scared. They didn't know what was going on.
I contacted the mayor.
I actually thought he was calling just to wish me a Happy New Year's. We do talk quite frequent at night.
He took it as I called him that I was joking with him. You know, he said, yeah, okay. And I said, Mayor, I'm serious, you know, that this is going on.
People were going outside and seeing birds fall, and some people actually got umbrellas.
It was just amazing. I never seen anything, a sight like that before in my life. It's like the movie, you know, the birds.
The light of New Year's Day reveals that red-winged blackbirds had fallen from the sky. Thousands of carcasses are scattered all across the town. It's a deeply unsettling spectacle.
It's just hard to believe that there were that many birds dead, laying everywhere.
I'd rank it up there probably as one of the strangest things that I'd ever dealt with.
I was worried about what the residents were going to think, and were they going to panic?
What could possibly have killed so many birds so quickly? And are people somehow in danger?
People were nervous when they saw the gentleman in the hazmat uniforms out.
We were a little leery about picking them up because what if something was wrong with them? Now all of that ran through everybody's mind that was there looking at them. Where'd it come from and why did this happen?
Compounding the mystery of the deaths of other animals. The day before the blackbirds perished, 80,000 drumfish washed up on the Arkansas River, 125 miles from Beebe. A few days into the new year, more bodies appear. It's birds again. In the neighboring state of Louisiana, hundreds of them litter the highway. A single big die-off of animals makes for good local gossip. Two, close together on the map and in the calendar, raise eyebrows in the region. But three events lead to more than idle gossip.
Forget looking up. If you're looking for birds, just look down.
It really is like something out of a horror film.
People may think the deaths are related.
Yeah, it is freaky.
I don't know what's going on, but that's weird.
Dead everywhere.
Maybe they're just not telling us the truth.
The truth, for certain bloggers, is that the dead creatures are a harbinger of the apocalypse.
The flock of these birds got a direct blast of the chemtrails.
But for others, the truth would be a grand unified theory, a mechanism that would connect the different deaths. And so some point to toxins in the clouds from the BP oil spill. Others focus on so-called chemtrails, jet exhaust claimed to be laced with experimental poisons. And some look to the North Magnetic Pole.
Perhaps fluctuations in the Earth's electromagnetic field is what's beginning to show up in the behavior of these animals.
Brooks Agnew suspects that not only are today's creature die-offs a sign of worse to come, but that the entire doomsday scenario was predicted by an early culture.
Are we so smart that we can throw out the evidence of the ancients?
An ancient Mayan king is a key figure for Agnew.
He had 6 fingers and 6 toes. He was very tall compared to his subjects. And he made some observations that on or around December 21st, 2012, the Earth would be lined up perfectly with the rift in the Milky Way. He called it the ancient vagina of space.
The immense gravitational lure of that galactic gap,
coupled with the sun's ability to put off large coronal mass ejections, would pull that energy, that solar flare as it were, over the Earth and end life as we know it on this planet.
Another theory of animal deaths involves a government conspiracy. A military research installation in Alaska called HARP blasts radio waves into the sky to study the upper atmosphere.
Any other government installation we go tour, of course, you can come in, you can see it in operation, you can film anything you want, you can sit in the chair, watch the screens, but not at HARP. When HARP is turned on, there's often a telltale lavender fluorescence to the upper atmosphere.
Few scientists subscribe to this theory, but for Agnew, its significance is profound.
This lavender sky has shown up minutes or sometimes hours before some of the most devastating quakes in the last half-decade. This is a coincidence? Maybe.
But of course, some conspiracies are well established. These starlings in Yankton, South Dakota, are in fact victims of a little-known government program.
Some people refer to it as culling, some people refer to it as removal, some people refer to it as harvesting. In all cases, the animal dies.
Starlings and red-winged blackbirds cause more crop damage than any other birds in the US. With their livelihoods at stake, growers banded together.
Back in the 1960s, there was a group of farmers in Ohio who got together and formed a committee called the Bye Bye Blackbird Committee.
Goaded by this committee, the US government joined the fight. Most federal weapons are non-lethal, such as noisemakers. But when gentler methods fail, the war can escalate. Several million birds are killed by the USDA every year, and among them are the starlings found in South Dakota. These birds had been fouling cattle feed. Were the BB blackbirds also government targets?
there was no government program underway in that area to manage blackbirds in any way. Whatever caused this death, it had nothing to do with the government.
Still, thousands of blackbirds are dead, and they certainly had enemies in Beebe.
Where I live, I moved there 24 years ago, and they were roosting behind my house. I had to use a butane gun to get them away from me, and they killed probably 10 cedar trees.
You're going to run them off over there, they're going to clear that, you're going to run them right over here or somewhere.
They carry diseases. Where they use the bathroom, that carries diseases, you know, and they put out a lot of it's dangerous. It's, you know, you won't see kids playing over there.
I bet the neighbors over there would look for them.
They need to kill these blackbirds.
Not everyone over there loves having that many birds roost in the area. I've had calls. People tell me it's ruining the paint on my car. What are you going to do about these birds? My answer was, what can we do? We can't kill the birds,
I have had some visits from some of the residents who are requesting that what we could do about the roosting area.
I don't think it was an intentional act.
It's a small town.
Strictly an accident that this happened.
There's a lot of good people here.
It's a good place to live.
I have had a lot of emails.
Very low crime.
That God is sending us a message.
That's exactly what I believe is strictly an accident.
Near the end of times.
We have birds that's falling out of the sky.
Beware.
The animal deaths are in fact omens, according to Brad MacDonald, a writer for a Christian website.
I was just skimming the news, and over a period of an hour or two, it was just story after story of bizarre deaths of animals. Where I thought there might be a connection was, looking at it from the biblical perspective, nature is a reflection of how God feels about mankind. When God is pleased with mankind, he blesses us with abundance. When God is displeased with mankind, nature will begin to fall apart. In the case of Hosea 4 verse 3, he says, birds shall fall from the sky, fish shall die, beasts of the land shall faint. The animal deaths, the disruptions we're seeing in nature, they are a small sign of much worse destruction that is coming. God will continue to get more intense in his warning.
As if on cue, 2 million fish wash ashore in Chesapeake Bay. More blackbirds die, this time in Kentucky. 2 weeks later, in the Midwest, some 200 cows meet their maker. As the wave of animal misfortune seems to build in early 2011, some suspect that the deaths are omens of the apocalypse. Officials in Beebe, Arkansas continue to investigate the thousands of creatures that died on New Year's Eve.
I'm a detective, so I kind of start slow and then I start following the evidence on things.
We looked in the trees and didn't see anything around that looked suspicious.
I got a call from a gentleman in Utah who said he knew exactly what the cause was. It was some poison.
I've even heard that this Wynwood subdivision was built on the old Indian graveyard, and they're cursed.
People are ready. All they want to do is find the simplest explanation.
That's the quest of the National Wildlife Health Center. The CSI of strange animal demises.
We received a call about a die-off of red-winged blackbirds in Arkansas. so we accepted some carcasses and received them today.
Wildlife pathologist Scott Wright supervises a necropsy as his colleague records notes for the official report.
Date collected January 1, date of necropsy January 4, species red-winged blackbird, euthanized no, carcass condition frozen, animal ID numbers and leg band none, and once again it's a legal case.
A legal case because many birds are protected by federal law. Kill a blackbird, go to jail. And some of the possible killers might be dangerous in the extreme.
One of the first things we have to consider is the potential for a terrorist act, because we don't know if terrorists have accidentally or purposely used wild animals to test their system. So we have to look carefully at these birds with that in mind.
But initially, Wright turns to more likely suspects. High winds. Hailstones. Lightning. Gunshots. Poisons. Infectious diseases. The lab results now come in.
What I have here is the final report. We've tested numerous tissues. We've looked for chemicals. We've looked for poisons. We've looked for disease. None of that is there. Everything came back negative.
With these findings, Wright can rule out both terrorism and government killings. And this leaves him with only one telling clue. What he saw in the body cavities during the necropsies.
One of the things we did observe was hemorrhage. Blood where it shouldn't have been. Hemorrhaging in the lungs, hemorrhaging in the liver.
New paragraph, necropsy comments. The probable cause of death in this adult male red-winged blackbird was trauma to the head, neck, and left side of the thorax.
We have determined up to this point, based upon our examinations of these carcasses, that they died of blunt force trauma.
They crashed into fixed objects at normal rather than wind-whipped flight speeds. Wright has taken the case as far as he can, and so others must now try to solve the mystery of why the blackbirds crashed. The birds are daytime flyers, so what were they doing out in the dead of night? Ornithologist Kevin McGowan has come to Arkansas to see the BB flock for himself.
Complexity of the whole group is just staggering.
A wooded area in the middle of town is the winter home base for 1.5 million birds, mostly red-winged blackbirds. After feeding in nearby fields, they return to the trees at the end of the day. First, they gather at the lot's edge. Then, at dusk, each bird makes a key decision, relocating to the tree where it will usually spend the entire night.
Blackbirds don't see very well in the dark, so when it's dark they stay put in the roost, and they only really come out of the roost once it gets light enough to see. The only thing that I can think of that would make them move would be being scared by something.
So, on New Year's Eve, something must have frightened the blackbirds out of the trees. A loud sound is the most likely possibility. And birds that didn't take off because of the noise itself might have been terrified by the alarm calls of other blackbirds.
They were rudely awakened in the middle of the night, and they did basically what anybody would do, that is, they were trying to get the heck out of there in a hurry, so there's panic.
The investigation of the BB deaths now has a new focus. What was the nature of the noise that triggered the fatal flight? At At the Rotterdam Natural History Museum in the Netherlands, the mystery of the baby blackbirds has caught the attention of bird expert Kees Mulliker.
I've been in the dead bird business for about 20 years now. I'm very interested in birds and it's my job to collect and preserve them.
Birds die every week colliding with the museum's windows. An estimated 1 billion birds die every year from striking glass in the US alone, which puts the Arkansas incident in perspective.
Those thousands of dead blackbirds in Arkansas, that was just minor mortality. There were well over 1 million roosting birds. 20, 30 years ago, nobody would have noticed these birds. I mean, maybe there was a story in the local newspaper and that's the end of it. But now everybody has social media, starts rolling as a snowball.
Mulliker has studied strange animal demises from the days when tweets only came from birds. Take a newspaper account from Baton Rouge, Louisiana in 1896.
In the early morning, 200 or more birds dropped dead from the sky. It was eyewitnessed by several people. There were wild ducks, woodpeckers, catbirds, and a number of colorful tropical-like species. And this was, in fact, the first and the earliest report of dead birds falling from the sky. This happened on a clear day with beautiful weather, with a blue sky, with no winds whatsoever. It makes it really amazing. If there was like a tornado somewhere, that's enormous power that can lift anything. And so birds can be lifted and fall somewhere else.
The same phenomenon might explain other historical reports.
We have, for example, worms, toads and frogs, salamander, and even fish, snakes. So there's a whole zoo that came down from the sky.
As Mulliker contemplates the archival record, today's seeming wave of deaths appears to be spreading around the globe. In Brazil, 100 tons of fish turn up near the shore. In Romania, starlings perish in the snow. And in New Zealand, snapper wash up on a beach, some bizarrely missing their eyes. Could these deaths somehow share the same cause? What makes a pattern of events suspicious? Perhaps these colored gobstoppers can offer an answer. If blues and yellows are mixed 50-50, what if 6 yellows come out in a row? It feels notable, but how many times did you turn the handle? With 3 turns a minute around the clock for a week, you'd get around 200 runs of 6 yellows. When these runs occur, we tend to give them more weight than they're due. It would be the same with animal die-offs. We see deaths, but miss all the times when animals don't die. Once you have a pattern on your mind, say the headlines about dying animals, you start to see the world differently. A few dead birds that you once would have dismissed as a mere coincidence now prompt you to talk to your local news station. At the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, cognitive scientist Josh Tenenbaum studies how the human mind deals with coincidences.
I've written several papers on coincidences with my colleague Tom Griffiths. He's a professor at Berkeley. We were trying really hard to finish up the last draft on a paper before heading out on our winter holiday breaks. But you know how these things go. We didn't quite get it wrapped up. I remember exchanges an email saying, okay, we're both going on vacation, and we'll be in touch in a few days. So flash forward a few days, I'm sitting there in the hotel next to the beach, but doing the last data analysis. And I send it off to Tom and say, okay, here's the last data. Take a look at this and I'll be back online in a few hours if you want to get back to me. So then I head out with my wife to a new restaurant we were trying in some back street in the nearest small town, Lahaina. And we walk in the door of the restaurant, and who should we see there but Tom and his wife. I knew he was on vacation too, but I had no idea that he would be on vacation on the same island, on the same part of the island, in the same small town, going to the same small Thai restaurant in some back street. This paper was full of really interesting data on coincidences, but I think this was actually the most interesting single coincidence that I've seen.
But was Tenenbaum's coincidence really as amazing as it seemed? He had emailed 50 other people on the same day, but didn't run into them. Maui is also a common vacation spot, and there's one more factor.
His wife and my wife were vegetarians, and this was supposed to be the one restaurant that was good for vegetarians. Taking a step back, is this the kind of coincidence that makes you rethink how the universe works? Makes you think that somebody's pulling strings behind the scenes? Well, not really.
But others are quick to imagine a hidden force that pulls strings. And for clues, they have traditionally looked to one place, the heavens.
As long as people have been looking at the sky, they've noticed comets, they've been mystified by them, maybe sometimes terrified by them. They've been seen as signs of the supernatural, maybe divine portents.
But in the early 1700s, astronomer Edmund Halley started a different line of thought.
He noticed a comet that had been seen a few years ago had very much the same orbit, the same path through the sky as comets that had been seen previously about 76 years before and about 76 years before that.
The fact that these orbits lined up was a huge coincidence. The coincidence made no sense if comets were unrelated one-off events. So Halley started thinking,
there's got to be a reason for this. It's got to be the very same object that's moving through the sky each time.
Halley's comet then was not a message from God, but a new kind of object orbiting the sun like a planet. It was an epic scientific breakthrough. Coincidences turn out to be so important that our eyes and brains are wired to detect them. Take these shapes. When the jaws are lined up perfectly, you see an illusion. This alignment is such a big coincidence that your brain decides it's more likely that a triangle is sitting on top of 3 complete discs. Another kind of coincidence drives this illusion. Changing your vantage point reveals the real shape.
The percept of a 3-dimensional triangle comes from a massive coincidence, the alignment of this corner and this corner and this corner and this corner and this edge here with this inside edge.
Your brain decides it's more likely that the form is actually closed than that you are coincidentally looking at it from just the right place to make it seem closed. Are the animal die-offs mere coincidences? Is the common intuition that they are linked just an illusion? While that question remains open for the moment, the variety of carcasses keeps increasing. Crabs bereft of life litter a British shore. Over 100 pilot whales strand themselves in New Zealand. Harp seals wash up on Labrador beaches. For Christian columnist Brad MacDonald, Each new die-off is further evidence of God's intent.
He is trying to communicate to us through this pattern. These events do signal worse times ahead for mankind. They are small signs on what is a path to a much greater destruction. There will be more natural disasters, and there will be more fish dying, birds falling from the sky. Nature will continue to revolt.
For some, the continuing animal die-offs are divine and dark omens. But in January 2011, many who are following the seeming pattern are riveted by a web video of dead birds falling from the sky onto a Dutch street. Within 2 hours, it gets 20,000 hits according to the filmmaker, Hiso Spijkerman, and he starts to get calls.
We hadn't thought about it that the Dutch media would call us so a little overwhelmed by what happened. We just told them it was fake.
Spijkerman, a digital artist, had been captivated by the BB blackbirds.
I wanted to make a picture for myself how it would have been to be there. I made a couple of stories in my mind's eye about couples being in love in a cafe and watching outside and birds starting to fall, and they're running outside to watch what's happening and being shocked, amazed, scared.
In his studio, Spijkerman added digital birds.
I realized that it wouldn't be that realistic when you get real close with the camera, so I decided to get one real dead bird. And so I started searching for stuffed birds online, and I found actually one. It costed $15, but I guess that was a little bit too much for a dead bird. Then a good friend of mine suggested, why don't you call a local animal shelter? They had one almost frozen, and yeah, that's our actor, our star.
Next came the video's intriguing title.
The title of the video says, what just happened here? And yeah, that works really good because people get really curious what had happened. So they watch the video. It was actually real fun to see people starting arguing with each other online. Some people being really technical, claiming it to be fake. Other people saying there's something wrong with nature and that we should listen to nature's voice. People who were seeing immediately that it was fake, but loving me for doing it. A lot of reactions contained a lot of conspiracy theories. I think 2 events combined by a journalist is enough to create a new story. So when another 2 events happen, well, the conspiracy theory is born.
Once a sensational idea is in the public arena, new evidence must be evaluated with extra skepticism, because people have an urge to become part of the story. Spijkerman needed powerful digital tools to put himself in the middle of an animal die-off. All one BB Arkansas resident had to do was to open his front door. An eyewitness to the blackbird deaths has stepped forward. Mike Overstreet lives near the roost.
I heard a lot of noise outside, a lot of whooshing, a lot of thumping outside. I stood up, walked outside to see what it was. I could hear the birds coming over. It was just a loud sound, like thousands of wings, but I couldn't see what it was. So I turned on the flashlight and looked up. It was just a mass of birds all flying northwest. The sound sounded like water. It was just unnerving. It was confusing. I actually had no idea why they were doing what they were doing. They were banging into my mailbox. They were banging into the automobiles that were parked on the street. A couple of times I actually had to move my head left and right from fear of being hit by a bird. I really couldn't see them that well. It was dark. All I had was the flashlight. The ground looked like it was covered with leaves, but they weren't leaves, they were actually birds.
Could whatever killed the BB blackbirds also be responsible for some of the other animal deaths around the globe? The wide nets cast by some investigators are coming up empty. The plume from the burning BP oil slick could not have reached every place that animals died. No convincing evidence has been produced that chemtrails, toxic jet exhaust, even exist.
Listen, nobody messes with jet fuel. No self-respecting pilot that I know of would fly an airplane knowing that they're putting chemicals out of the exhaust into the air. Those aren't chemtrails.
Most physicists don't believe that the cleft of the Milky Way could pull solar flares over Earth. And no one has explained how today's slow changes in the Earth's magnetic field would harm animals or their navigation. In any case, the BB blackbirds did not die at the time when finding their way is most critical during their annual migration. As for HAARP, the Atmospheric Research Station, no evidence points to its operation on New Year's Eve.
In the events that occurred in Arkansas, neither the lavender sky nor the radio signals were present. We have to negate HAARP.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Chief Meteorologist. Let's try it again. 3, 2. I'm
A new kind of evidence now illuminates the BB bird deaths, thanks to the curiosity of television meteorologist Mark Johnson. He's been hooked on the case from day one.
First day of the year, headline popped up on the AP about all these birds falling from the sky. Thousands of them showing up dead on people's doorsteps and front yards and driveways. I'm the kind of guy who wants to find some sort of logical explanation for this. So I kind of pulled up the old radar archives of that particular moment. The birds were close enough to the radar to appear in amazing technicolor. From nothing to this big plume spreading out over BB, Arkansas in about 12 minutes.
He started blogging about the blackbirds and other animal deaths.
People around the world were reading this blog, not just that day, but for weeks on end. It was a huge story. People wanted to know what happened.
Then, instead of looking at the BB radar data in 2D, Johnson switched to a 3D display. And now, a strange, turbulent mass appeared in the sky.
Look at this. Area of turbulence almost perfectly circular with a bullseye of turbulence right in the middle, right over the birds. Here, between 1,000 and 2,000 feet, we have birds. Something mysterious going on above the birds between 7,000 and 12,000 feet.
The turbulent feature can't be another part of the flock. Blackbirds don't fly this high. In all his years of looking at radar, this was something completely new.
I've never quite seen this perfectly elevated, vertically rising anomaly. It seemed to me like there's something there, something in the air that was causing these birds to fly and to scare the heck out of them, to be honest with you. Animals live and die, that's a natural process, but for thousands of blackbirds to die, that's pretty unusual, and that needs some investigation.
So what is the red blob over BB? A freak weather event? Massive fireworks shot up high in the sky? The mysterious feature is now being analyzed at MIT.
Totally different than things we've seen before.
Yeah.
Even the world's foremost radar experts are baffled. The strange radar signature above BB on New Year's Eve may be the missing clue that will explain the blackbird deaths. Intrigued, specialists at MIT Lincoln Laboratory joined the case. First, they determined that the blackbirds took off not just once, but repeatedly.
So here's the first exodus, second, third, fourth, some smaller ones, 5, 6, and then later in the night, we still see this sort of blue haze in the vicinity of the bird roost, indicating that the birds are still airborne in that vicinity, and that continues until the end of the loop at around 7 a.m. the next morning.
Never before have blackbirds been reported to fly for so long at night. Do blackbirds take off routinely on winter nights?
We looked at other random nights around that time of the year. We didn't see birds leaving the roost most of the time.
So, the sound that scared the birds on New Year's Eve was probably out of the ordinary. The nearest thunder and lightning was too far away to disturb the roost. Some other noise was responsible.
A little bit after 10 o'clock, I heard a few loud explosions. It sounded very loud fireworks of some sort, I seen.
Others also say they heard the sounds.
Just before 10:20 p.m. on New Year's Eve night, I was in bed at home, and I heard approximately 12 very large booms sounds that went off. They were so loud they actually rattled the windows.
Another factor now comes into play. Conditions for sound conduction that night were favorable. Warmer air lay above cooler air. A temperature inversion.
A temperature inversion can act like a lid on the sound so that the sound can travel a lot farther than usual. If there was a very loud sound that was produced, say 10 miles away, then it might have been heard in BB.
So the sound of fireworks anywhere in a large area might have been carried to the roost. One big question lingers. What was the red blob over BB? Even the biggest fireworks never reach such altitudes. Instead, two factors combine to produce the radar feature.
Weather happened to be passing through the area directly over the birds as they left their roost. Radar can have different effects, almost like a mirage, where you think you're looking at something, but it's coming from a different area. It happened to be a coincidence how this all occurred at the same time.
The red blob, then, is a mix of higher altitude rain and a mirage of flying birds that were actually at a lower altitude. The feature isn't real. The case of the BB blackbirds is now closed. Unusually loud fireworks may have been boosted by sounds conducted from miles away. The distress calls of a few blackbirds may have scared much of the roost into the air in a snowball effect. Panicked and flying blind, birds died by the thousands after crashing into fixed objects. In many of the other animal cases, investigators are now discovering the causes of death. The 80,000 drumfish on the Arkansas River died from a condition like the bends, called gas bubble trauma. When the dam's gates are opened, air is stirred into the water. On the day the fish died, the water was cold and so could hold more gas. The birds on the Louisiana highway were whipped by wind into power lines. In the Chesapeake, fish died from unusual cold. The Wisconsin cows died from eating moldy sweet potatoes. The starlings in Romania perished from alcohol poisoning after eating a winery's leftovers. And in New Zealand, the eyeless fish had been dumped illegally by a trawler. The deaths that once seemed to so many people to be obviously related now look like mere coincidences. But for religious thinkers like Brad MacDonald, they are connected by a higher power.
when flocks of birds fall from the sky, when schools of fish wash up dead on the beaches. All these events should arouse questions in the minds of men.
Questions do indeed arise. For MacDonald, they are about God and morality. For Josh Tenenbaum, they are about something no less lofty, the nature of the human mind.
Science and superstition often start at the same place, with noticing some coincidence, but they end up somewhere very different. Coincidences are responsible for some of our greatest irrationalities, seeing patterns that lead us to superstitions, conspiracy theories. On the other hand, they're responsible for some of our greatest peaks of rationality, new scientific theories.
What emerges from the seeming pattern of animal deaths in early 2011 is not then a story about nature or divine portents.
My view is it's telling us something much more about how our brain works, the way our brains are designed to make the leap, and it is a leap from a pattern of coincidence to meaningful stories about what causes what.
The blackbirds of BB and other unfortunate creatures tell us about our own remarkable pattern-finding powers that allow us to bring light to a sometimes dark and confusing world.
Follow Alaskan miners hoping to strike